Gene Bell, and I see your wife is with you. You want to introduce her, sir?
Yes, good morning. My name is Gene Bell. This is my wife, Mary Ann Bell.
Good morning.
Good morning, guys. Look, I know this is a tough weekend for you for what could possibly happen on Monday. And Gene, we have limited time, but you and I talked on the phone, and you did a great job of putting this together, kind of synopsizing it. Can you go through that for people who haven't heard the story? Because once you hear the story, you simply wonder why in the world this is even happening. But I'll give the mic to you, and you just go through it quickly.
Sure. Thank you, Paul. And in May the 6th of 1991, my brother, Bert Bell, was brutally murdered, shot 9 times in Grenada County by offender Frederick Bell, no relation to my family at all. And in 1993, Frederick Bell was convicted by a jury of Grenada County of capital punishment, and his sentence was death. Then appeal after appeal from his counsel led him to avoiding the death penalty in 2013 from being able to plead mentally unable to cope with society. And in 2015, me and my family began to fight parole each year, anywhere from a 2 to 3 year offset. And then, he was resentenced to life once he was ruled mentally unable to cope with society, if you will. And the, parole hearings from the previous parole board were good. In fact, that the offender never was granted parole. And then moving to July the 11th of 2022, my wife and I met with the new parole board that was appointed by Governor Tate Reeves and had a good parole board hearing. And moving forward from there, we were told some things, and we were assured that they had no intentions of paroling him. Mr. Jim Cooper, if I have it right, that was sitting across the table from me on the parole board. Mr. Jeffrey Belt was the chairman. He was there. And Marlo Stewart was there. I think there were 2, if I remember right, that were not there that morning. And, the synopsis in general was a good one. It was a good feeling out of the parole board. And then Mr. Jim Cooper moved to tell us that when I asked about the next offset, because we'd only received 12 months the previous 2 years under the Phil Bryant administration, that the offset case was extremely too brutal to put my family through, or to have to endure the same things every 10 to 12 months to bring up such a brutal case. So, I was told it's going to get at least a 3-year, probably a 5-year offset until the next parole, and was really excited about that. Parole board hearing ended at that point, so it was really a good parole board.
And stop. This was in July of this year?
This was in July 11, 2022.
Okay.
And then on August 29th, I received the gut-wrenching letter from the parole board, that tells me that they have decided to grant this offender parole. Now, let me remind you, my brother was never able to receive an appeal, never able to appeal his life, the 9 times that he was shot. This guy not only killed my brother May the 6th of 91, he also killed another individual in the state of Tennessee in Memphis, shot that individual 17 times. These are no accidents. These are real, true facts. These guys received second degree where they pled guilty to murder there. They received a second degree murder charge there where they received 25 years in the state of Tennessee. Received the death penalty in Mississippi, and because appeal after appeal, they get to avoid things and to walk free.
Yeah.
On our streets.
Here's a question.
A lot of good law-abiding citizens in Mississippi that don't deserve that. It's not just about Gene and my family. In my case, it's about the law-abiding citizens. That's the first and foremost obligation that our legislatures have for us as citizens.
I got to ask you this. Why has the Tennessee murder been adjudicated? Where does that stand?
The Tennessee murder charge runs consecutive with the state of Mississippi's sentence. So one would have to, one would have to opinionate, in my opinion, that Tennessee would say, you know what, our sentence ran first, and because they've been incarcerated for 31 years, then his 25 years is up. So that would mean that this guy's only served 6 years for shooting my brother 9 times.
So have you heard from the victim's family, and I'm not sure what the situation is there, but have you heard from the victim's family in Tennessee? They've got to be equally, if there is a family there.
I have not.
What do you think changed, Gene, between July and August?
That's the million-dollar question that we want to know. That's why we are seeking any help from all our legislatures, and we have gotten and gained some tremendous traction. We don't know. Have you heard?
Yeah. Have you heard from any of the board members? The board members are Anthony Smith and Marlo Stewart, Julia Norman, Jeffrey Belk is the chairman, James R. Cooper is also one of the 5 members of the parole board. Look, it's a thankless job. It's a tough job. I understand this, but this is this is a decision that really has upset a lot of people. Plus, I think it was yesterday, day before yesterday, I was reading 3 other stories about people in the state of Mississippi. One was in Tupelo, and I forgot what the other one was, who are out on parole and are committing some very, very serious crimes. As a matter of fact, murder on one of them. Then we get a letter yesterday, and I got a letter from the coalition at the Mississippi State Senate. This came from Angela Hill. I'm sure you probably have a copy of this letter.
Yeah.
Several state legislators were recently made aware of the Frederick Bell will be free on parole September 24th, which is on Monday. Scheduled to be released from the Mississippi Department of Corrections custody on Monday, September 26th. We, the undersigned legislators, strongly oppose the release of a twice convicted murderer. The family of the Mississippi victim has continued to appear before the parole board to plead for the violent criminals' continued incarceration. And I'm not going to read the rest of this, but the letter is signed by some members of the legislature: Senator Angela Hill, Senator Kathy Chisholm, Representative Stacey Wilkes, Representative Becky Curry, Representative Jill Ford, and Representative Dana Underwood, or let's say, I think it is Dana McLean, has signed on to that one. Have you heard from any of those ladies?
Yes, I have. In fact, they have been tremendous. I want to shout out to those. Shout out to Kevin Horan, representative here in Grenada, Lydia Chassanall. The list goes on. Grenada County Prosecutor Robbie Wilson. The list goes on and on of people that have called over the last couple of days. We thank them, and we plead. We're begging. I'm begging that anybody on the governor's staff that's listening this morning, the parole board staff that's listening this morning, this is not a personal issue between me, myself, or them. I'm begging the governor. I'm begging the parole board. I'm begging the constituents and the citizens of Mississippi to call your governor, call your people. Your voice does matter. We need to stop this for public safety. This is a public safety matter, not a partisan matter across party lines.
Gene, this guy is not someone who is near death or anything. My understanding is he's 50 years old?
If he's 50 years old, he'd be 51 in November of this year. Yes, sir.
And he's in relatively good health. Do we know where the parole board says he could be released, in what part of the state?
We have no idea of that either, Paul. We've not been advised by anyone of what's going on. We do not know.
Do you think this has anything to do with the move to lessen the population at the Mississippi Department of Corrections?
I do. I think that, from reading and understanding the bills that the legislatures passed, that where we want to decrease the population of the penal system. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't do that by paroling violent criminals, double murderers, kidnappers, sex offenders, rapists. We don't do it that way.
Yeah.
Mississippi is not I'm proud of this. Mississippi is not a sanctuary state.
You're right. Hold on, Gene. I want to continue this conversation, and if your wife would like to chime in on this one, would love to hear from her also. But I want to go back in the day that happened also, and some of your memories from that when we return just a moment or two with Gene Bell. Gene is the brother of the murder victim, and again, do we know what time that's supposed to be released? Is as soon as they get there, or 9:30. Do you have any time? We'll talk about that when we come back in just a moment. Hang on. FDIC. Gene is on with us. Gene Bell, brother of the victim, Bert Bell. And again, it's kind of confusing because the gentleman or the man who committed this atrocity, his name is Frederick Bell. As you said, he has no relations. Matter of fact, he's an African-American gentleman or a guy, and he's about 50, will be 51 years old, apparently in good health, and will be, according to the letter that you got, released from prison after how many years was he incarcerated?
He's been incarcerated for 31 years total.
And he was supposed to be in for on the death penalty. Then they moved it to life, and then they changed it again as far as all of the appeals that went through. Take us back to exactly what happened on that day. Did your brother know this guy? A little bit about the incident that happened, Gene.
My brother did not particularly know them, but these people were part of the everyday routine coming into the convenience store that my brother was running at the time.
Okay, you said these people, or you're saying that there was more than one person.
There's more than one person. You got Anthony Doss, who is in prison. He was also received the death sentence that has been reverted to life without parole. And then you've got a guy named Bernard Gladney, who was a driver of the vehicle for them that did not participate in the shooting. Can't remember the exact time that he received in prison. He actually testified for us in the state during the trial. And that's a good point to bring up, too, because when Bernard Gladney was released from prison from serving his time, remember, he only was the driver. He was not actually in the crime, things of that nature. And when he was released in 2016, he was rearrested in Grenada County on I-55, heading north back to Memphis, where he was living at the time, and wanted for another homicide, which he's since been convicted of. You know, the letter that I received from the parole board stated that they feel that this guy has been rehabilitated. Well, Paul, I beg to differ that. We can't even rehabilitate the driver of the car, much less a mentally challenged double murderer. That makes it that much more even dangerous if he's truly mentally challenged to be released on our streets.
The situation where he shot your brother 9 times, and then it's my understanding that you said he actually left there and went to Memphis and shot someone else to death, and I think you said 17 times?
17 times. Correct.
17 times he pumped 17 shells into this guy.
26 shots in human flesh all on the same day. Shot my brother, Paul, from the feet to the knees to the hands to a fatal shot in the head. Brutal. No accident.
And how much money did they take, Gene?
Less than $100.
Unbelievable. I'm trying to figure out a little bit of is there some situation where in a case like this, certainly the chairman, I would think, of the parole board would have communicated with the family. It just seems to me the courteous thing to do in a case like this where there's so much controversy, but apparently you haven't heard from anyone other than that letter from the parole board.
I have not, Paul. I requested, when I got the letter on Monday, August 29th, I began to call the parole board to request another meeting, and was told that I had nothing to talk to the parole board about. And I was like, yes, I do. And we did, in fact, my mother, who's still alive, the mother of Bert, the parole board finally agreed to teleconference me on September the 12th, in which they did that afternoon, and I conferenced my mother in as well, too, and let the parole board hear her for one last statement. There probably wasn't 15 words spoke on behalf of the parole board. Mr. Bell probably didn't say 5 words in that conversation. Marlo Stewart, I believe, was the one who was saying anything for the most part then.
Yeah, I don't understand where this is. I do remember going back to the last legislative session, and as far as I know, and I'm sure there's language in there that continues the legitimacy of the parole board. But the parole board effectively ended, the law authorizing the parole board effectively ended July of this year, of 2022, because it has to be renewed every few years. Now, I'm sure there's something in the language that keeps that going, but there was a report by PEER, which is the Joint Legislative Committee on Performance Evaluation and Expenditure Review, if people want to know what that is. They examined the operation of the board, which has 5 members nominated by the governor, confirmed by the Senate. But the question is whether they want to change the entire parole board as a separate entity or transfer to the functions of the Department of Corrections. We've had this conversation more than once with the new commissioner, Burl Cain, at the Department of Corrections. So I don't think that decision has been made yet, and I think that's one of the things to come up in the 2023 session in January. Has anybody said anything to you about that?
No, sir. No.
So where do you go from here, other than just what you're doing, trying to at least let this out on the media and let the media know exactly what is going on? I'm wondering, do they have a responsibility to tell you where this guy will be located and where he will continue this rehabilitation?
Paul, in my opinion, the statutes that I have been given and read and the research that I've tried to do, because I can't get any information really from anywhere, is that the offender upon release should have a job lined up, should have housing lined up. Is he on parole? Where's he going to be? Who's going to follow him? Us as a family, we're terrified. We're terrified for our own safety. I'm terrified for your safety. Yeah. This guy is brutal. So yes, we need to know these things. I mean, the public deserves to know. Yeah. Where is this? Sex offenders are required to register. Well, we should have some system that tells me where this guy is at all times. I have heard that he is going to live with, they think, a family member out of state. I didn't even know that was legal. I didn't know you could leave the state of Mississippi if you're on parole in Mississippi. Again, that's hearsay. And that's a, quote, think say. I don't understand that. I mean, we just need answers. We need help.
Gene, do you know if he was required to maybe wear an ankle bracelet? Was that part of the release? No?
Paul, we can't get any information at all.
Here's another disturbing thing about it. If we start leaning more toward, okay, maybe this guy is mentally incapacitated, to put him out in the public again after shooting one guy 9 times, another guy 17 times on the same day, and not fulfilling the full obligation of his sentence, and certainly not missing the death row and life term, I would want to know who he is with. Are they physically and educationally competent to handle someone who has some mental disabilities, so that doesn't get them off the hook? And I would think, we've come a long way as far as victims' rights are concerned, and looking at the people who've suffered from this. And I think within that boundary, somewhere, we should know if this guy is in our neighborhood or in what part of the state he's with, and is he taken care of? Are there some checks that the state parole board is going to do on a temporary basis? A lot of questions that need to be answered.
A lot of questions need to be answered. Our recent things that have gone on in society right here in Mississippi, in the DeSoto County and the Shelby County in Tennessee, where you got the runner that was abducted. And then you got the shooting rampage of a guy that served 11 months only of a 3-year sentence. You got right in Tupelo, Mississippi on September the 11th, 2022. The guy was paroled in December. He walks in the convenience store again and he shoots a man brutally in the back of the head that was totally compliant with him. I believe we got one out of Natchez, Mississippi that's out on bond for murder. That was rearrested, I think, Paul, in Jackson for shooting at a family member just a few days ago. It's extremely too violent. We should not become a sanctuary for criminals.
I do agree with you. We are following this one. Does your wife want to add anything to this? If she does, now's the time to do that. But yes, ma'am.
Actually, I attended the parole board meeting with Gene on July 11th, and the only thing that I would like to say is some of the things that you're discussing here that says
I'll tell you what. Hang on just a second. I'm sorry. The computer's going to take us away in a second. I'll give you some time to do this when we come back, so you can compose your thoughts and do this. Also, want to ask what your mother, what the mother thinks about this too. You said that she communicated a little bit, and I'd like to have her thoughts on it when we do this final segment with Gene Bell and wife coming up in a moment or two. Roger Wicker is going to join us at 8:05. Back with more coming up right after this. Hang on. Live from the Trustmark Studios, let me say this, that we have a lot of people who've chimed in on this on the C Spire text line, and I think to a man and to a woman, they are all outraged across the entire state with this one. Real quickly on Gene, how's your mother handling the stress, sir?
Well, my mother is devastated. It's a daily event. Bert was the oldest of two boys, and then we've got two sisters as well. And my father died back in March of this year. Just something that he thought he'd never see in his life, too. You know, thankfully, the good Lord's taking him home in March not to have to deal with this. My mother is devastated. It's every day. It's every day of her life. You know, it's I don't have a good word. It's brutal. You know, the heart-wrenching. I can't fathom. And Mother spoke to the board, parole board. I can't fathom the thought of how God-fearing individuals can listen to that and not do right.
Yeah. Let me give Mrs. Bell the closing, because she was talking about and relating something with one of the meetings. So, ma'am, I'm sorry I had to cut you off. We had a commercial come up, but continue what you were talking about.
What I was saying is that when we met with the parole board, we were totally at ease. It was a wonderful, wonderful meeting. May I add, very respectful, very supportive. We had a feeling when we walked out of there of peace. We had a feeling of comfort. We had absolutely, we were given in no shape, form, or fashion a feeling or an idea that this could possibly happen. And maybe, maybe they don't need to do that. Maybe they do need to prepare the families that come in and speak on behalf of the victims, the things that could possibly happen, and that, as much as giving you comfort and peace, they also need to tell you about the other side, that they didn't. And, we had a great meeting. In fact, we made a comment that was the first one I'd ever been to, but Gene made the comment it's the best one he had ever been to, really, as in having a great, communication and talk. But anyway, I just wanted to tell, I've been with the family for about 28 years now. I wasn't there I wasn't around when it actually happened, but I will tell you on behalf of the family that this has been an ongoing, brutal, constantly. I mean, it has been a constant every 12 months, something you're having to do to fight, to continue to fight for Bert's behalf. And, this has just been an absolute stab in our heart that we can't bring him back. We can't bring him back, and he doesn't have an opportunity to live. And we're all just totally shocked that this could even be possible.
Let me ask you this, because you have something that he doesn't have, Gene, this women's intuition. Between that July and August, what do you think happened and transpired to change this from your perception of you got this thing locked up to all of a sudden getting this unimaginably terrible letter? I'm with Gene. We have absolutely no idea. We were told at that meeting that it's a new board. You're going to love this. You're going to like this new board. Excuse me. And they said, and it's totally brutal to have to bring y'all back every 12 to 18 months. It's not going to be that way. And all of these things insinuating that we had absolutely no idea. We have absolutely no idea what transpired to make them go from giving us that feeling of, comfort and peace of opening this letter on our lunch break. On that, I do wonder how many other families that are going through this, because one year I was looking at some of the statistical data. I think they process something like 6,500. Sometimes it's literally hundreds a month. So they have a lot of people who run through there. We understand it. And we'll talk more about the parole board next week. We're going to have some other guests to continue this situation or this discussion. But I'm wondering exactly how many other families are going through what you guys have gone through. Have you heard from anybody else? Either one of you?
No, sir, I have not. I have not.
Okay. Well, we'll be following this. And again, what's the time schedule on Monday, Gene? Do you have any idea what time the board meets and what time this is going to happen? And also the release. I'm not sure if they will give you the release time that he's going to be out, but anything else you know about it?
Oh, we don't know anything. That, it goes back to the question that what happened between the dates from July 11th through August 29th. We've heard nothing. We can't get any communication whatsoever, which, again, is why we're pleading. We pled with legislatures. Thankful to them. I plead with the governor to step in and intervene.
Well, I wish we had more time, but I think we've covered it quite well, and we'll be watching this, and I know they have your number if somebody wants to call you and give you more information. So we will follow this and see what happens on Monday. Guys, thank you. Gene, I think your brother would be very, very proud of you and both of you for giving him hell, number one, and sticking up for it. I'm sure he's looking down on that and saying what brothers say to each other. So thank you for joining us. I appreciate it so much, both.